Well, hello there and welcome to Travels with Geordie. If this is your first visit, my name is Peter Knowles and I live on that wooden motor cruiser here in Victoria, British Columbia, along with my pup Geordie, all the while fixing it up for some pretty major cruising someday. If that's the sort of thing you might be interested in, please consider sticking around and subscribing. Now, I say that at the beginning of every episode, but gosh knows what's going on in the next little while. I tell you what I'm doing this week is carrying on with some work on my friend's boat, MV Zephyrus, so we can go cruising. And that work, for those of you who are following along, is finally wrapping up the new Propanelocker. We've had some really horrible weather lately. In fact, it's not really very nice out here now, but it's not actually raining. So let's finish this up and get it installed. But first, we got to jump back in time and get a couple more coats of paint on this before we can install it. Don't we all just love these sponge sanders? Yes, it's not the most economical way to buy sandpaper, but they're just so handy. Done. All right, so I've scuffed up the first coat of paint and I'm getting ready to put another coat of paint on, but before I do that, I want to make all the other perforations in the box so that I can paint in where I'm making the cuts, and that's for the through hull, which is going in the bottom as a vent, and also for the place where I'm going to put the wire gland in. And I'm sort of making this up as I go along, but what I do want to do for sure is make sure that I lay out the through hull, in other words the drain, located in the same place in the piece of starboard as in the bottom of the box. So I'm going to slide this in and at least drill a pilot hole through. Put the piece of starboard in, which I have carefully trimmed to fit. Okay, let's drill a hole. Okay, so now I've lined up where it's going to come out the bottom of the box, and I can drill that with the hole saw. Beauty. All right, well, with that done, now I just have to put a port, a gap, a hole here, which is under the deck, because this is the section that goes under the deck for the propane lines and the wire for the solenoid to go in. And I haven't given this a lot of thought. It's got to be fairly near the top. This propane cylinder is over a bit, so this is the greatest amount of clearance I have here, which is why I also put the drain in that same corner. So I'm going to say 2 inches. I think I'm going to go 8 inches. Again, in an effort to reduce tear out, I'm going to drill these halfway through and then finish them from the other direction. Nice and clean. Nice and clean. The trick now is to connect these, and I could do these with a jigsaw if I could find my jigsaw, but I can't. So I'm going to do it with the darn fine tool. So this is going to be a little bit painful. Hang on, I may be able to borrow one. Marina Life. My buddy Brian, 2 bolts down, jigsaw. Let's get this going here. All right, time to paint. Thankfully, the wind has let up, so this should be reasonable. And again, I won't make you watch me paint the inside. No. Okay, done inside. My gosh, the second coat is so nice. Okay, let's flip this thing over. All right, well, that's the second coat. I won't put you through the third coat of paint. It's just more painting. All right then, so let's review for those of you who may not have been following along. This is a brand new Propanelocker that I built over the last couple of episodes that is going to slide right in under there like that. That's why there's the clearance side on the starboard side of it, and it'll hold two 20-pound propane cylinders, and that'll work just fine. And it'll be enclosed in a mahogany bench thwart locker that was already here, but I'm going to have to raise it up to fit around it. Okay, so I built this out of 1/2-inch marine ply, and I glued up all the joints with PL construction adhesive, which actually now sort of looks like welds. Pretty amazing. And then just faired it up a little bit and sanded it and gave it 3 coats of easy epoxy Petit marine paint, and I'm really thrilled with that. So I've got a clearance hole in here where the hoses are going to go in, and now we're going to build a little plastic gland for that to make sure that those hoses remain airtight. And if you look inside, you can see a hole in the bottom where I'm going to install a bulkhead fitting basically a through hull, which will also go through the floor, the sole of the cockpit, and then out through another through hull above the waterline, which acts as a vent for the propane being heavier than air. If it did leak in the locker, it pours out and through that. Now this isn't something I created. This is standard ABYC, American Boating and Yachting Council standards for a propane locker, at least in North America. Let's get to it. Okay, if we get started where the hoses are going to go in, there's basically 3 hoses that have to go in and a wire, and they're these hoses here, part of my mock-up. So these are the hoses that go back forward actually to the various appliances. So there's 2 of these that go forward. One is for the stove and one is for the propane heater fireplace thing, and another one goes aft to the barbecue. And then of course there's a wire which is used to control the solenoid, and that comes back from the sniffer, basically the controller for the propane detector and solenoid controller, and they'll all have to feed into here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make a plastic block out of high density molecular weight polyethylene, and I'm going to drill holes in it for the various tubes. But to be able to get them through the holes, because they have fittings on the end, I'm going to then slice it down the middle and split it so it becomes 2 halves that come together to clamp on. Let's just get on with it. You'll see what I'm doing. Okay, so here's the plastic I'm going to use, and what I'm going to do is make a 3-inch by 8-inch section out of here, and I'm leaving a 3.5 by 3.5 section here as well that will be for to seal the hole down into the sole, and that'll become more apparent in a minute. All right, yeah, it's a bloody mess of lines here, but I changed my mind a few times. Okay, here we go. It's bloody plastic. You gotta make sure it doesn't blow away. Make sure this door is shut. I mean, it's super cool stuff, but okay, so that's for the wire, so it stays this size. This is for the small hose, larger, change drill bits. Excellent. And here for the granddaddy 5/8. Isn't that cool? Come on, that's cool. That is so cool. All right, so as I mentioned, this block is going to go underneath where the through hull comes out through the bottom, and it's going to be underneath the locker. And I would have liked to been able to basically just use the nut from the through hull to clamp this to the bottom of the locker, but if I do, I don't end up with enough threads to put a fitting on really comfortably. So this is going to get threaded right up to the bottom of the plywood, which means the hole in this has to be large enough to go around the nut, which is what I've got chucked up in the hole saw right here. So this just gets this hole right here. It's gonna work from the other side. There we go. And before I get too far, I want to do some vacuuming here because I hate having this stuff all over the place. So it was much easier to do all this drilling while it was all still attached to the stock. So now that that's done, I'm going to cut them apart. Cut this piece out first. More plastic flying. Urgh. This stuff is so slippery, it is hard to hold on to. I should probably be using a clamp, but I think I'll manage. About there. About there. And so this is going to be 2 cuts. One to take it apart into the 2 halves, and then to take the other half off. And there's the other half. Okay, so these go together like that, clamped on the wires, and this I'll show you what we're going to do with later. All right, and to make these slightly prettier, I'm just going to take a plane and slice off some nice long curls of the edge to put a little chamfer on the edge. I don't feel like holding this in my power planer right now because I can just get in here and very neatly give all of these corners a nice little chamfer. Oh, it's so nice. I hate to admit how nice it is working with this plastic. I really do. And then a quick wipe with some acetone to get the ink off. And it's like I never drew on there. All right, now, so to compensate for the loss of the material, in other words, the loss of the size of the hole that I got by putting a cut through, in other words, the kerf, the thickness of the blade, I have to re-drill these holes, but that's relatively straightforward. Just clean them up again. Beauty. And now they're perfect holes again. Okay, let me explain a little more about what this is for. I also drilled some screw holes in the bottom of it. Let me put this out of the way for a sec. And if you remember, there is a hole in the bottom for the through hull, which will be a drain. Basically, it comes out of there. Now, I'm going to put the entire tank up on spacers of that same plastic, basically 3 strips of the plastic. So that air can circulate under here and the deck, the teak sole doesn't get too wet over time. So as a result, because I'm going to be drilling a hole in the sole for this through hull to stick through and drain into the bilge through a hose, I need another spacer here. Exactly the same thickness as the strips that are going to support it, and that has to, I want that to be sealed to the deck, and I'll do that with butyl tape so that if there's water on the deck, it doesn't pour down that hole. Anyway, you'll see what this is all about. So now I have this ready to go, and I need to put some more strips on the bottom. Okay, so I've put the ripping guide on my saw at roughly 1 inch, so I'm going to take 2 1-inch strips off of this and make a heck of a lot of plastic sawdust. 1. Okay. All right, so to aid with the installation of this block, I have temporarily installed this through hull because I want to make sure it is in the right place. Now, I'm going to be putting screws into the bottom of my beautifully sealed Propanelocker, and I want to seal them up, and I'm going to use one of my favorite things. You've seen me use it before, butyl tape. This is basically permanently or perpetually soft rubber that basically never hardens, and it's just fantastic for stuff like this. And you just peel off. Oh, I've got it all stuck to itself. Ah, there we go. So I'm just going to take little nubs of it and put it under like that and put it around each screw that comes through. So I'll show you how we're going to set that up. So we're going to send 4 screws through, 1. So put a little bit of butyl around that. Okay, so as long as that's basically on the screw, not only does it hold the screw from falling out, it will make a perfect seal when I go in against the plywood. Okay, another one here. You don't need much. There we go. This particular butyl tape is unusual, and that has a plastic strip down the middle of it. Those of you who've been watching for a while will know that I couldn't figure out what was wrong with it when I first got it, but apparently it's a specialized kind of butyl tape used for window glazing. Anyway, it works fine as long as I just tear off that little edge bit. Now, these screws are only just going into the plywood because I do not want to risk them going through. Okay, so that's going to go right there. Doesn't matter if I push it down at this point because it's just compressing the butyl tape. And I put some weight on here so that I can do this. Good. Now, in a perfect world, you wouldn't put butyl tape around something that you were going to turn. In this case, the screw, I can't do anything about it, but it'll still do a fine job. Perfect. All right, let's start a little production line here. Screw through. Little dab of butyl. Roll it into a little bit of a roll that I can wrap around the screw. Just perfect. There we go. I'm going to do the other ones and you can take a break. And there we go. So they're all ready to go. So this is pretty straightforward. And the last one just goes off the end of this. Fabulous. I'm going to wait 10 minutes and then tighten them a little more just to make sure that that butyl tape is spread out and these are making good contact. And because at least in the installation I'm going to be sliding this around on a teak deck, let's just chamfer the ends of these little slides a little bit because it'll really make them glide nicely and reduce the likelihood of marring the deck. Plus I really like planing chamfers on this plastic. It's crazy. Okay then, for those of you who are following along from previous episodes, you'll know that this through hull is going to go in the bottom of the box, but it's not going directly in the bottom of the box. It's going to go through this piece of plastic, which is actually starboard, another high-tech plastic, and it'll sit in there. And the reason I put this in, this actually has a temporary plastic covering on it, because I want something really tough for the propane cylinders to slide around on. If I start throwing propane cylinders in on top of painted plywood, it won't be long before it's completely trashed. So this is trimmed to sit in the bottom, fits in perfectly, and I will put sealant all around so that it is permanently part of it. Now, the trick is, this is a chamfer on it, and the flat of it will sit flat against the plywood in the bottom. That's fine. But the chamfer has to be cut in this plastic. And I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do that yet, but that isn't even what we're doing next. What I got to do now is drill a hole in the cockpit sole. And that's why I've only drilled the single hole in here for now, which I used to line up to drill the hole in the plywood. So I'm going to toss this back in. We're going to put it in place. We're going to drill a hole through this, through the bottom of the box, through the hole that's there, and into the cockpit sole. Now, despite all my best measurements and care, I hope I don't drill right into a beam or a fuel tank. Yeah, let's go. So that sits in there like that. We then take the box, gliding on our new plastic slides, which have nice chamfers on them, and I slide it right into place where it's going to go. Now, where it's going to go is a bit complicated because I have to leave enough space on the side for the lid to go in, like that. And more than that even, I have to make sure I have enough space that I can put a little ledger in here that the new thwart will sit on. And as you can see, it just fits. This whole project was measured to the millimeter. So the new thwart, the existing thwart is going to come up and tuck under here, but I have to move this out far enough that there's a ledger that will sit there so that this can be lifted off and clear that ledger. So that's what I mean about finding the location for this. I have to make sure I have roughly an inch along here so that this can sit on there just like that. Let me just sort that out. Haha! Things were going so well. How many of you noticed this? I completely blundered this little apparatus's location. I had it across that, right? But now it's needed to be completely within this side locker. I can't have hoses. That might be a job for tomorrow. Yeah. Well, hello folks, and welcome to the Beer of the Week. I hope you're all doing well. I am doing just fine, as well as my friend aboard MV Zephyrus. It's certainly topsy-turvy. There's some days that are better than others, no doubt about that. I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about. Staying motivated is a little tough, but I want to thank you all because it's this channel and the work I do for it that has had a big impact on keeping me motivated. So I'm a little motivated to have a beer with you. So we're going to go to Category 12 Brewery from here in British Columbia and their Disruption Black IPA. And black IPAs, I've had a few that I really liked and a few that I didn't think much of, but I like anything dark generally, so we'll see what we think of this. Okay. I'm going to tell you that this beer is well deserved and really badly poured. I'll be just a minute. Okay, that's fixed up a little bit. Took quite a bit of time for that to settle out. Anyway, so cheers to you all. I hope you're all doing well. Well, kind of a hoppy porter. What else would I imagine from a black IPA? Anyway, Category 12's Disruption Black IPA, definitely drinkable. No, I won't be buying it again, but still quite tasty. And I do want to thank Gary Deschamps. Gary, you're a crazy man. Gary sent me another beautiful, plainer, high quality table saw blade, unsolicited. This wasn't on any wish list anywhere. I have a feeling, Gary, you watched me put the big stainless steel screws right through that last blade and you figured I needed another one. Amazingly, the blade is still actually running very well, but I'm so grateful because these are brilliant blades, and in the not too distant future that will come in very, very handy. So thanks again, Gary. I want to talk a bit about Patreon. I know a lot of you will click off now, but I just need to mention I'm so grateful for my existing patrons. My only income now is Patreon, and it's modest, but it's going to keep me okay. And because all my regular design work is gone during this situation, and I've been losing some patrons, a handful. And I realize that these are tough times, and I acknowledge that. So I want to let you all know that if you're uncomfortable and feeling that this is not a time to be able to help with that, please, limit or end your support, because I'll be fine. I'll get by. And in extension to that, my base pledge had been $2 an episode. I'm going to create a new $1 an episode pledge for those who might still want to support at a more modest level. And it's something that I feel I can do that might keep some of that moving, but also make it a little easier on people that are feeling a little pinched nowadays. So I have set up a new $1 level on Patreon, and I'm very grateful for anyone who feels like coming aboard at that, or if you need to move down to that, that's just fine too. Cheers to you all. And yes, the word of the week. For this week, I think it's going to be essential, as in essential worker. Doctors, nurses, truck drivers, grocery store clerks. Leave me a comment down below with the word essential, essential worker, whatever you like. And I'll pick it random from the first 24 hours worth of comments. And if I pick your comment, I'll send you off a Travels with Geordie t-shirt. And on that, we'll see you next week. Actually, it's